Hi, I'd like to start the Police Merit Commission this evening. My name is Gail Garden, acting president for Charles Wheeler. If we could start with the Pledge of Allegiance, Karen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We've got determination we do have a quorum, and if there's any comments from the commission members? Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
At this time, I'd like to call that if there's an approval of the minutes for the regular meeting from August 12th, 2019.
I was not here, so I won't motion on that.
And,
I wasn't either. So.
You can still make a
read it.
motion.
okay,
And it's complete. I make a
Right.
motion that we accept it.
I second.
Okay, next, if there's any unfinished
We have to
business.
vote on it.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Sorry.
sorry. So we've approved the minutes for the meeting of August 12th. Good enough.
I said first and second. Now
Oh,
we need to
first
vote.
and second.
So then I need to vote.
First and second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now, if there's any unfinished business. Okay, we'll move along. At this moment, we're going to detour and have Tom Ashcraft speak.
If you want to do recognition first. I thought this last on the agenda. This might be long. Okay. This might take a little while if you want to do the recognition first. The recognition of an officer.
I thought you wanted to speak.
I do. Well, I'll go right into it then. Thank you. This might take a little longer, is what I'm getting at. Good evening. And thank you for allowing me permission to come before you and speak on some issues. I've been the president of the Lawrence FOP Lodge now for roughly 15 years, and also been a state president for a state executive officer for a little over 8 years. In 2006, we as a Lawrence Police Department got together and pushed hard from the legislative standpoint to put through the Merit Commission. I was the president of the Board of Public Works, Ms. Powers was, and she helped us get it through. So my point being is the Merit Commission is such a vital tool to the community and to the officer. It has procedures for hiring, firing, termination, promotions, evaluations, has all these tools to make things work. And literally, the bottom line is it gets rid of the good old boy theory. It's a designated process. We follow by the rules. It works fine. But we run into a few difficulties. This current difficulty I'm going to bring to you right now involves the sergeant's promotional list, which expired yesterday, which had 2 officers remaining on the list. These officers were at one time under the assumption that they would be promoted eventually before the list expired. And this was told to both of them indirectly via emails or somehow we come into contact with this information. The 2 officers now, here a new list is wanting to be published, and so they're going to bypass these 2 officers that should have gotten, they should have received the rank of sergeant right after the 2 lieutenants were promoted, because we promoted 2 lieutenants this commission did back in July. And I don't want to get too technical about it, but in July we promoted 2 lieutenants, which in turn opened up 2 sergeants slots. And the same sergeant slots were available on 3rd shift, which is exactly where we need sergeants. So with that being said, we've gone down and talked to our legal counsel and expressed our issues about the list. I mean, here we got 2 officers that are willing, they've gone through the process, they've got certified, they took all the testing procedures, they're under the assumption they're going to be promoted to sergeant. Then all of a sudden, no, we're not going to promote you. And what I want to do is, I think it's pretty important, we as the FOP was hearing all the rumors here, why the promotion wasn't going to happen or the reasoning behind it. We sent a letter to the chief asking him to explain July 18th. What are you going to promote him? Or are you not going to promote him? The chief in turn responds back to the FOP. I won't read the whole thing. I'll just read a couple paragraphs out of it. The chief's actual letter says, "It is not my intent to fill any further positions from the current promotional list due to the age of the list and given the fact that it will become obsolete in less than 2 months. The LPD Operational Division supervisory staff is currently adequate. We're short 2 sergeants." He consulted with the city controller, which happened, and the fiscal approval to consider for sergeant's promotion for money-wise might fall this fall. Well, I guess we're at fall now. So, the new list is coming into effect if you vote on tonight, on the 12th. It's supposed to be a fiscal issue. Somehow these officers became obsolete. And none of this to us is saying, why? You have 2 current officers that are eligible. I mean, they've gone out here, they went through their testing process, they've done it all. And our system is set up, they follow to the rule of how it is set up. They didn't, any extra points here or any extra points there. A fiscal standpoint, it's $1 an hour, $1. It's going to cost the city $600 the rest of this year. If they promote another sergeant under the new list, another 2, it's the same thing. It might be $500. I guess what we're going to ask tonight is I'm going to ask that you hear briefly from these two patrol officers to explain briefly a little part of this, of what they've been through. And then my second request is going to be, we're going to pray upon this council, or this commission, to put the current list, or the current voted on list, on hold, or continue this till another month, or whatever it might be for your next meeting. So we ask you to look into it as the commission in detail with the facts that you'll be given from myself, the officers from the city, so you can see it yourself, so it's not just me coming here in front of you telling you and these officers telling you. We want you to see why we feel so strongly with this. We're coming in front of you saying don't approve this secondary list, our new list, and we have officers sitting out right here now or on that list to be promoted. My goal is not to destruct them. My goal is no way, shape, or form. My goal is to make sure in the future this won't happen. And that's why it's so important that we ask you to look into it. But if you don't mind, could I have the officers at least say their part?
Okay, I'd like to see if there's a request to hear the 2 sergeants,
Patrolman, they're right here.
two patrolmen.
Tom, you realize that we don't have names, we have numbers.
Correct.
So you say you have the officers here that were supposed to be promoted. I don't know who they are because I don't ever had a name.
Correct. But, okay, I understand what you're saying, but the officers that were on the list, the last 2 people on the list are here. And those are the 2 that are supposed to be promoted to sergeant.
Before we do that, if we were to do that,
Uh-huh.
I'd like to ask a couple procedural questions, if I may, and maybe I should know the answers because I'm on the commission, but what was the commencement and expiration? Well, we know what the expiration is. You said it was yesterday of
September
the
11th.
prior list. What was the commencement date of that list? Do we know?
September, probably 2 years ago.
It was September 11th, 2017. The list expired last night at 11:59 p.m. According to your Merit Commission rules, which follow the same verbiage as state law, state law requires that eligibility list should be maintained for a period of 2 years from the date of certification. after which time the list shall be retired and a new list established. And I'm reading that straight from Indiana Code, which is, again, mirrors the language in your Merit Commission rules. Your Merit Commission rules require you to establish an eligibility list for promotion. That prior list is no longer in existence. It has expired pursuant to the 2-year term.
Okay. And then, thank you. And then secondly, whenever this board would approve whichever candidates for promotion based on whatever, when would those promotions take effect? Immediately or at some future date?
It can be at some future date. Just because you establish the promotion list, the eligibility list, doesn't mean that someone's going to be promoted tomorrow. The decision on who to recommend for promotion and when to make that recommendation, when to promote them, would be up to the police chief, and I can defer to him if he wants to answer in regards to timing. But just because you certify the list doesn't mean promotions happen tomorrow. You are required to establish an eligibility list, and that other list has expired.
Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
How did the people that you have now brought with you, did they go through the same promotion test?
Absolutely. The 2017 process were scored on the list. They were on the email from the chief saying they would be, they were, I forget the exact words, but they were going to be promoted, basically, down the road. He goes, I see a possibility that everybody's going to be promoted on this list. And this was in 2017.
The 2017 list, is that what you said?
Yes, ma'am.
In 2017, an eligibility list was established.
Correct, and that's the list they were on, and that's when, on 10/31 of 2017, the actual email says next on the list was Brandon, then Slayball, Litch, and Havis Harris, in that order. And Havis Harris and Litch are the two that never got nothing. I mean, they're not here. I mean, they deserve to be promoted. And if you think about it, why do we have a merit commission? I mean, why do we have these merit rules? Yes, granted, it was last night, yesterday. But may I ask, why the meeting was continued? If we were planning on being here Monday.
We were trying to get a quorum.
Oh, okay. Okay. I mean, I didn't know. Because we would have made it here before. We would have been, then the list wouldn't have expired on us, is my only point. But I think that looking future into our commission rules, this is an issue. I mean, we can't just turn our back on two officers that that went through the process and deserve it. Now, our list had 6 officers on it. This current list, or the new one, if you approve it, has 6 officers. What happens to the last 2 on those lists if something comes up and we decide not to promote them because another list will be coming out in 2 months? And it kind of takes away the energy out of the officer going and taking the test, is my only point.
Madam Chairman, do you
Okay.
mind?
Go ahead.
And I don't know, this may be for afterwards, it may be something the chief can answer or corporate counsel can answer, but, so I get we might know everyone that took the test, and if there's only 2 names left on the list, how you could derive who those 2 officers are, but other than the testing company, are the members of the list known? Is there any general sense of who's on the list? I assume we know who took the test, but you don't know
We
which
just have
officers the
numbers.
numbers represent?
You just have numbers as far as I know, it's just the numbers.
Yes.
And as far as the process, I can defer to the chief regarding specifics, but it's just the numbers that are listed.
So I got how we could arrive at the last 2 officers. You listed several officers that were next up in an email. You said these are the officers that are next up. I didn't. Oh, maybe I misunderstood. I thought at some
Yeah, the
point.
next up was these 2, then there's a new, if this list is approved, there'd be additional 6 officers. They're on that list.
And they're listed by number. So I
No
think
one knows
No
No
one
one knows.
No one knows.
who the numbers represent.
Right, and I don't think Mr. Ashcraft was, when he mentioned names, was talking about the current list whatsoever. He was just mentioning
Right.
prior lists. Right.
Prior list.
They're just by numbers.
Got it. And do we know if the last 2 officers on the list took the test or applied? We know if they're on the new list.
I do not know. I do not have that information.
Do we know who takes the test, Chief? So they're on the new list somewhere, too. One is, okay, got it.
At this time, I'd like to know if the commission would like to hear from the policeman that Mr. Ashcraft has.
That's going to put faces on numbers, and
Okay.
I don't know that that is the reality of it. So as far as listening to other officers, we've only
Okay.
got numbers, okay?
Then with the commission's permission, I'll speak on behalf of them. Because I'm going to tell you their story.
I understand what you're saying, and being from a police background, I understand that promotion list, and
Because this is such,
let's get the other side of it. Can you step aside for just a second
Absolutely.
and have the chief speak on the issue? It would probably clarify things in the mind of the commission.
So I made a few notes when I was listening to President Ashcraft's comments. The chief of police of the Lawrence Police Department is not compelled under any legal, moral directives to make promotions. The chief makes promotions based on the efficient operation of the department and his or her best judgment and their position as chief of police. Just because you you go through the process of a promotional process, whether it's sergeant or lieutenant, that doesn't guarantee a promotion. In fact, President Ashcraft used the phrase that it takes away energy from the officers to seek higher promotion. We do this process, and it is competitive, right? We want the best and the brightest. We want people who are willing to put in the time to study the reading materials, to prepare for a written exam, to be prepared to stand in front of a board of outside agency evaluators holding the rank of captain or above, to score well, to get highest on the list, to be the best, as I said, and the brightest, the most prepared, the most squared away for promotion. Once that list is established, as the counselor just mentioned, it is valid for 2 years, according to Indiana merit law. So I knew that this list was about to expire. I knew the date was September 11th. I knew that on September 11th of 2017, the list was certified. And I took the top 4 sergeants off of that list in order as vacancies occurred. So I knew that September 11th is right around the corner, and the list would expire, and I was anticipating that a new list would be certified. I had no idea who was going to be on the list. It didn't matter to me. Names, faces, races, genders, military affiliation, their stories, that doesn't matter. I want the cream of the crop. So I could have taken the lowest 2 scoring on a process that was 2 years old, but I felt like that would be doing a huge disservice, not only to the present law enforcement leadership in the city of Lawrence, but for years to come. And what it would also do, when the new list would be certified, the number 1, the number 2, possibly the number 3 sergeants, those individuals who really put in time and commitment to score really high, they would be probably never promoted. Because to make 2 last-minute, 11th-hour promotions off an old list, that would satisfy my anticipated sergeant needs for at least 2 years. I know of only 1 sergeant who has declared his intent to retire, and that's in 2022. So to me, it just seemed like, I don't know, it just seemed like a no-brainer. I don't know why everybody's feathers got ruffled over this. I'm trying to improve the professionalism and the leadership of this department now and in the future. Yes, ma'am.
It is safe to say that, and this is just something that I wrote down, that it's possible that the 2 men that Mr. Ashcraft that's on this list, that they just don't meet the criteria anymore. Is that correct?
Well, they don't meet the criteria because, on the old list, because it expired at 11:59 last night, right? So we all know, you may not know names and faces. You guys just get a 4-digit code.
Right.
But everybody knows, it's common knowledge that, and I'm going to use general terms here, that Officer Smith, who's 1234, he tells Officer Jones, who's 1236, they all talk and they all know where they finished, so even though you don't, word on the street is pretty prevalent, so I guess I would just kind of say, I got the fiscal approval from the city controller. He said in the fall, we have the financial wherewithal to, promote 2 sergeants, and that was my intent. I wasn't going to do it tonight. Tonight, I was just going to ask for a certification of a new list to be in compliance with state law. I mean, state law, the word shall is in there, that when that list expires, a new list shall be certified. And that's not just Lawrence, that's the state of Indiana. So a vote to not certify the list tonight is technically illegal. And the Merit Commission's own attorney will explain that in depth. But I don't know, I never got really I never understood why somebody who finishes dead last on a list would consider, him or herself entitled to promotion. It's indicative that there was no preparation, that went into it. So that's kind of my general thoughts on the matter. And
May I ask, did the test change, or the requirements change between 2017 and what was administered in order to create the current list?
absolutely. So that's
So there's a change in standards, shall we say, between the two?
so the
okay.
materials have changed.
Okay, the materials have
The
changed. Got it.
materials have
Okay.
changed to reflect modern 2019, 2020 law enforcement
Okay.
trends.
Okay.
So new textbooks, new oral interview questions that reflect things that we're facing today.
Okay.
And that's another reason I used the word earlier, the word stale. The testing, it was appropriate 2 years ago, but in our world, a lot of things change quickly, and we want to test candidates based on what's going on in the world now. So that was another reason why I felt like I want to get a fresh list. And if one of the candidates who's behind me right now, if he finishes number 1, I'll be more than happy to pin his new badge on his uniform. It's nothing personal. I can't stress that enough.
Commissioner Powers, just to follow up on that, just to add another answer to your question, state law says that the rules governing promotions have to be based on 4 factors. And so those 4 are the score received on a written competitive examination, the score received by the member on an oral competitive interview, the performance record of the member in the department, and the member's length of service. So that's kind of the second part to your question. I think the Chief answered specifics, but generally speaking, those are the 4 factors pursuant to state law that can be considered when you're.
What's the third?
Those have not changed. It's just that the material content within a couple of those factors has changed.
The performance record of the member in the department.
And I believe the weighting of each of those factors has not changed.
That's correct. So pursuant to state law, neither a member's length of service nor the score on the oral interview may comprise more than 20% each of the rating. So your Merit Commission rules are in line with that, with the way that you weight each of those 4 factors. So your Merit Commission rules allow 40% to be given for the written competitive exam, 30% for the average of the performance ratings, 20% for the oral interview, and 10% for length of service. So they're in line with what state law requires in regards to percentages.
That's the factors for testing.
Those are the factors that are tested to establish the list.
Madam Chairman, may I
Yes.
address the Chief? I got an email from President Ashcraft yesterday morning, and so I felt a little overwhelmed. I'm new to this commission, and so I'm trying to learn. I only got a chance to talk with him briefly, but, so I understand from and these aren't police terms, but from a management perspective, I've been a member of management, and I've been on the other side as well, and so to me, there's a balance, and I used to call it creative tension, and if it's not there, people get complacent, and if it's too much, then the organization breaks down, and what struck me in all of this is that I think originally this meeting was supposed to be held on Monday, and we got a note from the clerk saying that we needed to move the date, that, you know, you'd sent a request in saying, hey, can we do it on Thursday rather than Monday?
I had heard there wasn't going to be a quorum.
Well, that just wasn't what was in the original, but I absolutely understand. There was also the desire that you've expressed to be able to pick from, you know, the new list rather than the old list, so absolutely get it. And I guess, I know I'm kind of going all over the place, but to me, there's kind of a letter of the law, which you very eloquently have cited for us, so I get that. But I also am trying to think of what the rank and file, what the perception can be as well, sort of the appearance. And I guess where I'm going with all that is, had we have met on Monday, and we would have supplied 3 names from the 2017 list.
No, the 17 list expired yesterday,
Right,
so
but on Monday, the old list still would have been in effect, would it not?
it would have been in effect, but you were being asked to establish the 2019. Your agenda hasn't changed, so the agenda that you have tonight would have been the same agenda you had
I'm
on
sorry,
Monday.
when you read us the information, I didn't realize, I knew when the old one expired, I didn't realize that we could, anytime we wanted, create a new list. That's what I didn't understand.
Correct. It just expires
mean,
that
I didn't
2-year
understand.
anniversary.
So a month from now, if we want to create a new list, we can as the commission.
No, what I'm saying, that list is already expired. It's over and done with, and you don't have a list, and your rules require you to establish a
I-
list. So you could have established it on Monday had you had a quorum to meet, in order to meet that 2-year deadline. Do you see what I'm saying? Because that list would have
Let's just-
expired.
We can create a new list Monday. I was under the impression that on Monday, had we have supplied the list, that these 3 numbers would have been different because they would have came from the old list.
No. On Monday, had you had met on Monday, if you'd had a quorum, the agenda that you're working off now would have been the same agenda. You just didn't have a quorum, which is my understanding, to meet on Monday. So you are going to be asked to certify and establish the 2019 eligibility list.
We can establish the new list anytime we want in order to meet the new date.
No, it's expired now.
Okay,
So it
On Monday.
expired yesterday. Monday, you could have done it because it hadn't expired.
right,
You
so.
still could have done it.
next
Monday,
week
you can do it today.
Next week, it wouldn't have expired either. I'm asking, is there any, so is it only the day before we can establish the new list, or is it a month before?
No, you can establish, Monday, you could have established the 2019 eligibility list. Tonight, you're being asked to establish that. Your current list has expired. The 2017 list has expired.
I'm just trying to understand.
No, I understand. I just don't think I'm explaining it well. That's why I'm sorry. Maybe I'm,
Because what it appeared, from my perception, I would have thought if the old list was in effect, that's where the names would have come from.
oh, yeah.
And then, if that's the case, then by delaying the meeting is what my understanding is, maybe what the perception is, that allowed 3 different names to be given. And since only
No.
one of the officers has applied, and you're going to pick 2 of the 3, that would have effectively allow you to
I think,
pick officers, other officers. Understand, this is all from a perception standpoint.
Well, the
and that's
perception
what-
is invalid,
trying to
I think,
get.
because I had no intention of promoting anybody off the list that was about to expire.
No,
think
no,
we're talking
you were
about
just
two
You were just
different
asking for
things.
names, I understand. And then from those 3 names, you would select somebody presumably in the future. And the names that we give you tonight,
I think we're talking about 2 different things. I think your original question, you're talking about promotions versus establishing who can be promoted. So there wasn't going to be a recommendation for promotions.
you're right, I was using the wrong term. So on Monday, if we had certified the top 3 eligible sergeant candidates, my understanding is that certification on Monday, which is prior to the expiration, would have been certifying names from the list that was in effect.
No, see,
So that's different than what I
right,
understood.
because you're talking about promotion. Chief's not recommending anyone for
No, no.
promotion, so to speak.
No, I was only talking about certification
Right.
of
It would
three.
not have been from 2017, it would have been from the
what I,
2019.
that was my misunderstanding.
Okay, good.
I understand.
So the list was going to expire on 9/11/19, whether we met or not. The
Correct.
list expired.
List expired.
A new list, regardless of when we vote on that new list, will be in effect no matter what, whether we had voted on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Correct. If you had had a quorum to meet on Monday, you would have been asked to certify the 2019 list at that time. Correct.
And then our certification would be from the new list, even on Monday before the old list expired.
Correct. And it's good for 2 years. So then in 2021, it would expire in 2021.
So
It's 2 years from the date of certification.
if we're, so the folks who were at on the old list, only if they had been elevated for whatever reasons prior to 9/11 would they have, would they be, okay.
Correct.
Eligible, okay. And so I guess the question I'm hearing right now is that why weren't those folks elevated prior to the expiration of the list of 9/11? And I don't know that that's something that we have control over. I don't know.
The Merit Commission does not.
Right.
No, and I agree. It's up to you to decide when to ask for those names from the list.
19 eligibility.
My concern was if the goalpost was being moved in order to get the new list.
There's
And
nothing
as it's been
nefarious
explained,
going on
Oh,
about
I
this.
just.
No, not
I
that-
just wrote that
That's,
the old
it was the
list
perception
established in
that I was
2017
worried
versus the
about, so
2019.
that's been explained to me.
Well, the list we have in front of us shows the numbers that are also reflected on the request for eligibility. And there are six numbers. Do you have that list? Is that the 2019 list that we?
Yes, it is.
And out of these six,
We need to establish the eligibility list for 2019 list.
That's what I'm asking
That's
for.
what we were,
This is. If that be the case, then those three candidates that
from
we
this
only know
list
as
of
numbers
six, yeah.
are on that list. So I don't know that that numbers have any reflection on the 2017 list. If they were on the 2017 list, those numbers, which equal people, but like I said, I don't know who they are, so.
so at this time, should we move to request to just, I don't have the right words, I'm
So
sorry.
for the purposes of the agenda, I'm requesting a certification of the 2019 promotional list
Which is 6 individuals on this.
Right.
On the list that we have in front of us.
on the list that will remain in effect for 2 years.
Well, there's a sergeant and lieutenant list, right?
And the lieutenant list as well. Yeah, I mean, we're focusing on sergeants tonight because of the discussion, but there is a single lieutenant that makes up the lieutenant's list, or a lieutenant candidate.
So to me, what I hear is the question that Mr. Ashcraft on FOP needs to have answered, and I don't know that we can, is whether or not the promotions occurred when you thought they would occur versus occurring at a different time based on a different list.
I think we can look at, we can look at 2 or 3 different ways. The people, the 2 officers that were remaining on the list, we turned around on July 8th with 2 officers left on a lieutenant's list and promoted them. There's a history with this, with not this commission, but the Merit Commission, where there were 4 people on the list and they promoted all 4 of them as sergeants. So there's always been some type of history. There's very many lists that's gone away without these people being promoted. What the chief brought up about these people's grades or these 2 officers' scores weren't what they're supposed to be or higher because this new process is so much better or so much, I won't use that word, has newer laws. Well, laws change every day. new test questions. The two officers were fully aware in their own mind, one of them serving our country. He thought he was going to get promoted, and one of them's a current officer right here that works every day. She was fully aware. She goes, yeah, I had no doubt. I was told down the road, I'm on the list, I'm going to get it. And this is in writing. So that's what I'm trying to do tonight is stop a whole bunch of problems. That's all I'm asking. Please, let's sit back and investigate it, because I want to stop a problem and future problems.
I have a question, thank you. I have a question from council, please. We have no list as of today, is that correct?
You have the list, is that what you said? I'm sorry.
We have no list as of today because the prior list expired, and if we don't approve the list tonight, there is no list.
Correct, you do not have, there's no eligibility list as of this moment. It expired last night.
But by law, don't we have to establish one tonight?
Correct. You have to establish one. State statute says eligibility list shall be maintained for 2 years from the date of certification, after which time the list shall be retired and a new list established.
Just a point of record on this, we had a hiring process when this administration came in that we were short, I don't know, 4 or 5 officers. No list. And they said, well, we'll have the money to establish the list. There was no list for hiring for a period of time. I don't know how long it was. But now all of a sudden, we're quoting state statute on you got to have the list. Well, we should have had the list back on the hiring too.
Oh, sorry, I can't.
You weren't here.
I understand, I can't speak.
I know, I'm looking at you because you brought it up. It's not personal, but it's my point being is, if we're going to go tit for tat with stuff, you're correct on that. But then why did these officers run the streets short? I should have said it's not fair. We did not establish a new hiring process until after a period of time. Our list was done. There was a period of time, 6 months, maybe even a year. We didn't have a list. We didn't have a process going. Didn't have the money.
Are you
That's
talking
not a
about
fair answer.
an eligibility list, or when you say?
Eligibility list for hiring, new hires.
I understand there was a 2015 list and a 2017 list, and I can't speak to
Right.
either one of those. I wasn't here, obviously, but I do understand those were in existence.
Excuse me, Madam President, do you mind if we hear from Captain Schneider if she's willing to address the group? Said she was in the middle, I mean, she's like the director of the process for us. Thank you.
We are not required by law to have a hiring process. There is no law that says the Merit Commission must establish a hiring process list. However, there is a law that says we have to have a promotion list established.
Okay.
So just to clarify.
Clarify that. Okay, thank you. Okay.
On a follow-up real quick, what's more important, having police officers on the street or putting stripes on their shoulders?
Good point. But it's not part of the role.
At this time, I guess I'd like to make a motion to, move to either
Established?
proceed with the current list that was set before us,
In the agenda.
on the agenda.
So you'd like a motion to establish the
Establish
eligibility list?
The eligibility list, the 2019,
Well, it's still no.
the sergeant and the lieutenant.
Motion?
Yeah.
You make it, Bob?
Okay, I'll make a motion that we establish the list as presented from Captain Schneider. Is that right? That's the 2019 list. Tom, I wish we could know where those numbers are for the people that you have. I just don't, we do not talk about people, we talk about numbers. I understand where you're talking from. You know that the officers, I don't know how they found out they were on the list unless somebody told them, because we never had that information.
Well, easy to find about lists, cops talk. I mean,
Shop talk,
mean-
you know, I
that's a given. But there's other conversations and other emails that went around that actually identified to him. I just think this is a bad move on behalf of the commission to go forward with this right now. Because I see a lot more problems down the road that's going to arise out of it, and there's a lot more issues that will come out, which I'm not at liberty to express some other concerns, but we're going to hold off on those. But all we're asking for was to be investigated. I know you made a motion, I know you've already said that, but that's all that's the only thing we wanted, was given our opportunity.
Thank you.
I'm just going to ask you to obey the law.
Yeah, because we have to establish it. And the only ones that have been presented are these 6 individuals who now just have numbers. But that's my,
There's 7.
and by law, we have to establish a list.
For sergeant and lieutenant.
Pardon?
For sergeant and lieutenant.
Yeah, that's what these are.
We need to first establish the sergeant eligibility list,
Okay.
is the first motion, correct?
We had
That the motion you made first is the sergeant list, eligibility list.
the 6.
No, there's 3. Well, 6.
6.
6 for
I'm
sergeant.
sorry. 6 for sergeant.
It says establish sergeant and lieutenant eligibility.
And there's an additional for for lieutenant. So there's only 6 for sergeant, 1 for lieutenant.
You're wanting a motion for each list, is that what you're asking for?
Two separate
Erica?
lists, right?
Okay, so I think there was a motion on the table which combined them, but Erica's asking for a motion to establish the 2019 sergeant list and a second motion to establish a 2019 lieutenant eligibility list, so, just to clarify.
So I'd like to, I'm sorry, I'm nervous.
So are you withdrawing your motion, and are you going to ask for a new motion? Is that what you're?
Yes.
Okay, all right, just for the record.
So I'd like to establish a new motion for the 2019 sergeant eligibility list for the promotion.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, actually, it's sergeant and lieutenant, but based on that.
But she
them
wants to do
separate
it
them out.
separate.
She wants them separated.
Separate, please.
Separate.
Maybe we should have listed it that way on the agenda
Yeah,
then.
on the agenda.
So then each list is certified.
You understand? Okay. You'll write it that way.
Yep.
No,
I can assure you.
she needs to call for a vote.
Well, we need
need a
you
second.
need a motion and a second.
You made the motion, Bob, and then we need a second.
Motion.
I'll second it.
So just to clarify, your motion now is to establish a 2019 sergeant eligibility list?
Right.
Okay, I just want to clarify, so the record's clear that we're doing them individually. Okay, so we've got a motion and we need a second now.
I'll second it.
Full motion?
Now I'm stumped.
All in favor?
Oh, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to abstain. I don't feel like I've got enough information.
Second, I'd like to,
Yeah, just formally, your vote is yes or no?
oh, yes.
Okay, I just wanted for the record to be clear that there was 3.
3 to 1. Abstain-
Well,
abstention.
3 yes, 1 abstention, correct. The vote carries.
Motion passed. You want to do one for the lieutenant too? Okay, I'll make the same motion for the lieutenant's list, and there's only one on it. Since we're separating these two motions, I'll make that motion. Get a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Aye.
And abstain.
Okay.
I believe that's all for new business. I'm sorry.
You did awesome, thanks.
Thanks. Now it's time for the performance recognition. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, motion to request for certification of the top 3 eligible sergeant candidates.
That was the list that we just voted on.
We certified the list, but is that a question that could be set aside in terms of considering the candidates?
So you just established an eligibility list?
Right.
So now now we're requesting that the top 3 be certified, which allows the chief to then come before the commission and elect to have 1, 2, or 3 promoted to a rank.
Okay.
So the request is to certify the top 3 sergeant candidates.
If we don't proceed with that motion this evening, does that leave a moment of conversation with the FOP on anything, or?
I'll give that to the chief.
You can hold off on it if you're nervous about it tonight, that's fine. I'm not making any promotions anytime in the near future. So, and by that I mean in the next few weeks. So we can have, delaying that certification of the top 3 candidates really is irrelevant. And if you want to do it, put it on the next month's agenda of the regular meeting of the Merit Commission, that's fine.
I move that we delay that, well, I guess if we don't make a motion, we don't have
Table.
to.
You can just move to table it. It's on-
Table it, table the certification of the top candidates at this point.
And I second it.
No, we can't. We already just did.
Well, we have the list, but if there
The
wants,
eligibility list, we don't have a promotion list. He will be.
You have a promotion eligibility list, and that's what had expired. That was the one that's good for
Right,
2 years. So that's what you just established. So the chief is now requesting you certify the top 3 eligible sergeant candidates, and that's what he's saying. You can table that. You don't have to vote on that tonight. So you can table that. You just had to establish the list. That was the
It was the 6th.
issue.
Just didn't do the.
correct, yeah.
Okay.
So I move that we table the certification of the candidates at this time.
You know,
And I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
it's moved and seconded, it's done. According to rules, Robert.
Oh,
Gotta
we
have a
don't
vote.
have to vote on
Oh,
it?
just for the table. Yeah.
It's just postponing the vote.
Laid it on the table and then we seconded it. Makes it done.
So we need to,
Move it forward to the next meeting.
now we need to, motion to recommend the candidate number 2961 to the promotion of sergeant at a later date.
Yeah, we would have to.
And that's what you're going to table as well.
You can bring it forward at that later date. and pick
Exactly.
it off the table.
Exactly. The next 2 are
Move that we
Move
table.
at
meaningless.
this point.
given
Yeah,
the-
yeah, right.
They're automatically
Whereas
kind
he's
of
not asking for
yeah.
those 3.
Because they're moot at this
He will
point
have to
since you
come back
tabled
to
the
us.
item before.
So just put them on unfinished business.
Put them all under unfinished business. That would be appropriate.
There's no motion needed.
Well, you can just do it by unanimous consent if you'd like.
Move to table.
That's fine.
Yeah, you've already done that and it's been seconded, so it's tabled.
Okay.
At this time, we'd like to hear from the chief with performance recognitions.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. If I could have Sergeant Jeff LeGrand, his wife Melanie LeGrand, and Officer Lindsay Marshall, please join me at the podium. I'm going to get some assistance from our, well, you'll hear in just a second. So on August 27th of this year at 2:20 p.m., Lawrence Police Officer Lindsay Marshall responded to the report of a citizen needing assistance in the 10,100 block of Matt Drive. There, Officer Marshall encountered a female resident who was highly distraught due to having to use a handgun to destroy one of her own family dogs who had ferociously attacked the other family dog and then attacked the resident as she was attempting to intervene in this dogfight. All this occurred within the home of the resident. The citizen and her husband reported that Officer Marshall's response was extraordinary, displaying control of the situation and conducting a thorough investigation while also being empathetic and compassionate to the resident. Officer Marshall noticed the resident's spouse is a law enforcement officer and was on duty at another Central Indiana Police Department and asked LPD's Communications Center to contact that officer so that he could respond accordingly to his own home. The following day, these two great citizens contacted the chief's office, sharing their observations of Officer Marshall's professionalism, and asked that Officer Marshall receive official recognition for her outstanding performance. So we are honored to be joined by those two residents this evening, Sergeant Jeff LeGrand, his spouse Melanie, and I felt it somewhat important, instead of hearing it from me in a prepared statement, that they be able to tell their story of what happened that day because they lived it.
To begin, I can't thank you enough for the way that you approached this situation that was unfolding in front of me. I apologize for the tears.
It's okay.
It was a horrific situation where I had no choice but to end that situation. And the way that Officer Marshall approached me was nothing but with 100% humility, 100% kindness, and for the feeling of what I was going through versus the situation at hand. I would like to thank you from the bottom of my heart for not only assessing me, but also taking control of the situation, directing the EMS team as they got there so that I didn't have to tell my story over and over. My husband served 25 years in the military. He retired as a master sergeant. And one of the things that the military do when someone does a great deed is they coin the other person. So if you would please shake my hand, I would like to coin you. For the wonderful job that she did. And please remember that throughout your career.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we are always grateful when citizens catch a cop doing something right and bring it to our attention. And most importantly, sharing that with the department and all the viewers of this meeting, whether they're here or watching online at a later date. So thank you, Sergeant and Mrs. LeGrand, for joining us and recognizing Officer Marshall here in person. That was fantastic. So one more time, ladies and gentlemen, please join me, Sergeant and Mrs. LeGrand, in commending Officer Lindsay Marshall for her outstanding performance. In keeping with President Wheeler's directive, Officer Marshall will be receiving this certificate, which outlines the details of this incident, and this will be documented in her permanent personnel file as well. You bet.
Lastly, if there were any comments from the police chief, anything? Okay. At this time, oh, sorry, if there's any citizens' comments? At this time, I'd like to motion to adjourn.
Second.